Okay, this is slide 6 in our Progressivism unit on the environment. Any list of the great environmental presidents has to start with Teddy Roosevelt. He's not the first to create national parks, but he creates more than any other president. Sets aside more land for national park use or federal use than any other president. He is our first great environmental president. So let's talk about some of his environment work. First of all, let's start with the Forest Reserve Act. Okay, now this is not created by Roosevelt, but he's the first president to really use this. It gives the president the authority to set aside public forests as national parks. Right? So it allows the president to create national parks. And Roosevelt is, as I said a moment ago, creates more than anybody else. So the guy behind Roosevelt's environmental movement here is a man named Gifford Pinchot. Up in the top right corner here, you see a picture of Roosevelt on the left, and that's Pinchot on the right. Pinchot is sort of Roosevelt's environmental conscience, the guy pushing Roosevelt to do more and more to protect the environment. Roosevelt names him the head of the Division of Forestry. Right? The head of the Division of Forestry, and that's going to be important later on, so make note of it now and commit it to memory here. And it is Pinchot who actually coins the term conservation when talking about nature and needing to conserve nature. Right? Roosevelt will make great use of national organizations to promote his environmental message. So let's talk about a couple of them, and we'll start with the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts. He gets children involved in nature, encourages children to get outdoors and to experience nature. Mainly, I think, in large part because he couldn't as a child. He wanted them to do that. But the Boy Scouts would go on to become the country's largest youth organization, the largest organization for young people in America, the Boy Scouts here in America. Okay? Roosevelt will also make great use of a group known as the Audubon Society, named after a man named John James Audubon. And Audubon was a naturalist and a painter. He painted all the birds of North America. His painting is very famous. He was a huge environmentalist and a lover of wildlife and nature. And the Audubon Society is today one of the largest animal protection groups in the world. John James Audubon lived in Louisville as a young man back in the 1800s. If you are familiar with some neighborhoods here in Louisville, Audubon Park, and then named after it, Audubon Hospital, Audubon Country Club, and all that. Audubon Park, the neighborhood, it's basically across the street from St. X. If you've ever driven through there or know anybody that lives there, all the streets are named after birds because of John James Audubon here. Okay. Roosevelt will also make great use of the Sierra Club, founded by a man named John Muir. The Sierra Club is an environmental protection group, but mainly in the West, to preserve the wilderness of the West. Up at the top here, you see a picture of this is Roosevelt on the left and Muir on the right. That's taken, I believe, at Yellowstone. But Roosevelt was a huge outdoorsman. He loved camping, loved hiking, loved hunting, goes on safaris all around the world. In fact, this since we're talking about environmental information, this seems a good time to discuss what a lot of people know but don't realize the connection of the teddy bear. Okay? Roosevelt, when he was president, went on a hunting trip in Mississippi. Okay? And he was not having any luck, just wasn't getting anything, and the guides felt, oh Lord, the president's going to be very unhappy with us. So they trapped an old bear, tied it to a tree, and said, Mr. President, here is your bear, fire away. Roosevelt refuses to shoot the bear. He said, this is not hunting, it's not sport, it's not fair game, I won't do it. So he refused to shoot the bear. Well, a reporter hears about this and draws a political cartoon of Roosevelt refusing to shoot the bear, and the story breaks that this happens, right? A toy maker contacts Roosevelt and says, Mr. Roosevelt, I very much admire your stance here. I wonder if you would allow me to create a toy and name it after you. And he says, well, I don't know why anybody would want to buy a toy named after me, but sure, go right ahead. So he builds a stuffed bear, sells it as a children's stuffed animal, and nicknames it the teddy bear after Teddy Roosevelt and his refusing to shoot the bear in Mississippi. So, good time, I think, to talk about that. On the previous slide, or no, 2 slides ago now, I guess, the first Teddy Roosevelt slide, you see a little picture of a teddy bear there. That's in the Smithsonian, the original teddy bear that was created, named after Teddy Roosevelt. So, anyway, let's finish up here, this slide, a very short slide. 2 extremes, okay? Roosevelt and Pinchot are trying to balance 2 extremes here. On one hand, you have big business that wants to exploit nature for everything they can. Timber companies and so forth want the wood, and Roosevelt knows they need it, but he says there are responsible ways to go about doing this. Cut a tree down, plant 2 new ones, sort of thing. So on one hand, you've got businesses that want to exploit nature. On the other hand, you have people like John Muir who don't believe nature should be encroached upon at all. He doesn't even believe in national parks because he sort of sees the future where these go, and it's people destroying nature in the parks. So you've got Pinchot and Roosevelt kind of in the middle trying to balance these 2 extremes of a responsible use of nature, that people should be able to be in nature and experience it and enjoy it, while at the same time businesses using it but not exploiting it. So it's a kind of a fine line that he has to walk here.